Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Chloe and today we're going to be covering my labour and delivery story of the birth of my beautiful boy Jesse Tobias, who is going to be inserted here. This is Jesse. Say hi, Jesse. Hi. Oh, is that a bright light? We've also got my lovely husband Lee here too. And they're just going to be here to help me out a little bit because I made notes actually on my phone when I was going through the process so that I would remember these things specifically for this video. But he's just going to jump in as well if he remembers anything that's slightly different to how I'm remembering it, or he's seen it from a totally different point of view as well. So any interesting things, Lee's just going to chime in with that as well. So like I say, I do have all the notes here on my phone, so I'm going to refer down to them. So I'll probably read them out as I say on my phone and then I'll add anything else in. So let's get started. My labour story started the day before I've just put. So this is on the Thursday the 17th of September. So I wrote, went for a long dog walk with Bella in the morning, then took a shorter walk later onto Tesco's to get some tea. We had a chicken tikka curry, although it didn't end up tasting that spicy. So basically what I'm telling you here is that the day before anything started happening, I did go for 2 long walks. So I didn't really do anything to get my labour started as such, you know, like people recommend you drink raspberry leaf tea and all these different things. I've not really done anything up to this point, so I should say that my due date was the 16th of September, so this was one day after my due date. So I took a long walk with Bella in the morning and Lee also, and we just had a really nice time. And then I took a second walk that day as well, just because I wanted things to get moving without resorting to anything drastic. So I just was nice and active and yeah, just pushed myself a little bit. And then we got a curry for tea as well, and I thought just that spiciness would maybe help progress things on, but it turned out that it wasn't spicy anyway, so that didn't really help, although it might have done, because then I've fast forwarded on to the morning of Friday the 18th of September. This is when we started to feel some things happening. So I put between 10 and 10:30 a.m. I started to feel some twinges. So I downloaded the Freya app from the Positive Birth Company and I started timing them, and then I put describe the timings of the how long. So they were really varied at this point. They were quite regular, they were within the 10-minute time frame. There were some that were only lasting short amounts of time at this point, like 30 seconds, but they were kind of regular, like every 5 minutes or so, but they were kind of like 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes. So I knew that something was happening, but at this point the pains felt really weird. They didn't feel like pains at all. It felt like he was pushing out of me, so I didn't even know if it was labour, but that's why I started timing him. But yeah, that's how I could only describe it to my parents, was like he felt like he was like just being like really active and pushing outside my belly, which I now know was like my belly actually tightening around him, but it just felt like he was trying to get out. But it was really interesting to think that as well, because I'd had these pains throughout my pregnancy, hadn't I? A lot of pains, like these sensations that I felt like he wanted to get out, which will have actually been Braxton Hicks, but I just didn't know that. So that was 10 to 10:30. So Lee was out at the gym and I got myself ready for the day. And then at 1 o'clock I told my family that I was having these twinges. So I was meant to be going out with my mum for some lunch, and I was meant to be getting picked up just after 1, I think like 1:30. So at 1 o'clock I told them that I was experiencing these things, but I was still going to come up because I wasn't even sure if it was what was really going on. So then at 1:30 my brother picked me up and I went up to their house. So I took my birthing ball up with me as well, because I had been bouncing on it all morning in case anything was happening. So at their house I had some soup and a sandwich and a scone with them for a few hours. And then this is where the surges stayed the same in how intense they were, but they just started coming more regularly. So they were coming down to like between every minute and every 4 minutes, and they were lasting for about a minute each. I thought things were progressing, you know, doing really good. And then at about 4, yeah,
He's trying to get your attention.
hi, you want Mum's attention? So then at about 3:30 I came back home, and on the drive home I started to feel them slowing down as well. So I thought, okay, this is just really early labour, you know, nothing's going to happen right now. It's just coming and going. So I was a little bit disheartened, I'm not going to lie, but yeah, they just started to slow down. So then at 5 p.m. we went for a walk and I started to feel them slightly more intense again, which was obviously exciting for me. So I definitely knew that it was early labour then, and it wasn't just like him trying to push out. Although at this point I was really sad I wasn't progressing, as I felt like I was going backwards. And I remember being on the walk with Lee and being quite tearful because, yeah, I was just sad that it was slowing down and I just really wanted to meet our child. So after the walk we got home and had tea, and then slowed right down to between every 8 to 10 minutes. So I sat on the birthing ball before switching to the sofa, and I tried lying on my left side. I don't know why I put that. Maybe the midwife had told me that that was a good position to lie in for a bit, but I was uncomfy, so I switched to sitting upright. I watched The Big Bang Theory and some Tim Tracker videos, and I started to feel the intensity up to a 3. So when I say that, I put it on a scale of 0 to 10. So in the morning the pains were only at about a 1 or a 2, but the intensity at this point probably up to about a 3, sometimes a 4, and they were getting to be a minute long and about 6 minutes apart. So again, really hopeful things started to pick back up. At 10 p.m. we went to bed and I was starting to feel the intensity ramp up to a 4. Over the next few hours the intensity kept ramping up to a 5 and then a 6. Now this is when you will be able to see in the vlog, my birth vlog. I'll leave it linked above and also below for you. This is when I was filming myself sat in bed and I was doing my breathing techniques and rubbing my crystals, and Lee was watching a stream and I was watching Tim Tracker YouTube videos on my phone again. And I was just trying to get as comfy as possible. So I tried sitting upright in bed, I tried on the birthing ball, over the bed, all sorts, but I finally settled back to sitting really upright in the bed. So I was still awake practically all the night. It was just being sick on the floor. So at 2:10 I was still awake, and I asked Lee to make me some toast with plenty of butter on and some water as my tummy was starting to grumble. So I ate this and I was good, I was fine. At 2:42 I took 2 paracetamol and then I rang the birthing centre, because at this point they were coming every 3 minutes but only lasting for about 30 seconds. So I thought I should just get some advice and let them know where I was at, because it was a smaller birthing centre. They said, if you think you're in early labour, give us a call, let us know. They said it's like an airport, they like to know who's circling, who might be coming in case I need to get some extra staff in. So I rang them and they advised me that it was early latent labour and told me to see how the paracetamol goes, and to take a hot bath, use the birthing ball, have a hot water bottle to help any pains, and then contact them if I feel that I need some more pain relief, if baby goes quiet, or if my waters break or I had a bleed at all. But otherwise they'd see me in the morning. So I did have a scheduled appointment that morning for about 6, half past 6 I think it was. So after this I tried to get as comfortable as possible and doze off to sleep. Lee got up and put the hot water on for me and we cuddled in bed for a bit. At this point I was getting really uncomfortable and I was curling my toes with the discomfort. So at 4:15 I got into a hot bath and I just remember feeling and I set my battery tea lights and candles up, and I had the dressing room light on, which was just coming out of the hallway. I got into the bath and at 5:25 I had my first contraction in the bath, and it was still really powerful. It just took the very edge off. So I know that it was actual labour at this point. And like I say, when I was in the bath I remember having a really strong one and like just curling my toes up. But at 5:10 I got out of the bath, got on the birthing ball for 25 minutes before I woke Lee up, and then I got dressed and packed my bags because I had to get ready to go to the appointment. And then I've put Squishy had some big wriggles while on the ball, and I had a tiny little bit of red in my discharge. So sorry for the TMI, but it is a labour and delivery story. So at 5:45 I went for a wee, and then I found that I had more red discharge. So I just continued to get ready. Like I say, I was going to my appointment, so I actually took a photo of it. I know it's not the nicest thing, but so I could show them when I went in for my appointment. So we got to my appointment at 6:30, and Lee was actually allowed into this one to keep me calm, which I can only thank them hugely for. So again, my surgeries were more sporadic and all was good with me and the baby. They checked me over, and I was booked back in for Wednesday the 23rd if nothing had progressed, just to see if I wanted a sweep or anything like that. But that morning I was happy not to do the stretch and sweep, so we just went home. On the way home at 7:30 we called in at McDonald's for breakfast on the way home, got home, ate this, washed myself, got back into my PJs, and I curled up on the sofa with my duvet and my doggies, and I actually managed to have a nap for about an hour and a half, which was really nice. So at this point my surges had slowed down enough that I actually was able to have a nap. So then after I woke up at 9:30, I went to the toilet to get a drink, and I had a big surge after being lied in that same position. So I had some more red veining, shall we call it, in the discharge, which they told me was all normal, and it was probably just a little bit of my show coming away. At 10 o'clock I had another couple of paracetamol and I started timing my surges again. It was the same intensity as before I went to sleep, but not yet as regular as they were when they very first started. So then we didn't really do anything that day. We were just waiting around, went on another walk until at 11 p.m. when I took 2 more paracetamol, again just to try and take the edge off. They weren't really doing that much, but yeah, like I say, I didn't feel like I needed more than paracetamol at this point. And yeah, so then the next thing that I put in was at 3 a.m. and this is actually the last one that I've put in here, because then everything goes on to the birth vlog, so then I'll just talk about everything from memory, and that's when Lee will probably jump in as well. So I put at 3 a.m. I had a little leak and I wasn't sure whether this was discharge or whether I'd weed myself or whether it was my waters breaking. So I went to the toilet, and when I wiped I had quite a lot of discharge with a tiny little bit of brown veining in it. So like I say, I wasn't sure whether this was my waters or not, so I did put a liner in just to see if I was collecting anything, if it was my waters going, and just to see how it was. When I woke up that morning there was more than usual, so I did ring them up and they told us to go in, and that is where the main part of the birth vlog starts. So yeah, I'm just going to take a breather. I hope you're keeping up to speed, and now we're going to go on into the actual time of the delivery of Jessie Hare.
Oh, you on camera?
Hey sleepy boy.
You on camera?
You in a video?
Wow.
Sleepy boy.
Like I'm famous.
Yeah.
Hey YouTube.
So now we're going to move on to the actual delivery part, and like I say, that first part was probably more in detail because I don't have a lot of video clips of that, but oh, big sigh. But now we're just going to go on into the general birth story. So I left you off when we got to the birth centre and we were examined there, and they told me that the pad that I had put in wasn't actually my waters breaking, it was just a lot of discharge. Like I say, it was probably bits of my show coming away, but she did examine me and found that I was 4 centimetres dilated. So luckily we'd taken our hospital bags in the car with us because she was like, you're staying in to have a baby. And
that was optional, remember, too.
Yeah, so she said, do you want me to examine you and have a sweep?
If you just said no, we'd have gone back home.
Yeah, so if I'd have said no and not had the chance to be examined, then yeah, we would have just gone home and we would have never known, which I find crazy because I'll tell you when I get there, like in a story, but we wouldn't have gone in until I was like really far along otherwise, would we? No. So yeah, how do you remember feeling at that point when they said we're staying in to have a baby now?
It was nervous excitement. I think I told you at the time.
Yeah.
It was nervous excitement where
nervous excitement.
You knew it was coming, but you just don't know when.
Okay, yeah.
And then when you think about like what's coming, you're like, oh man.
Yeah, this is happening now. But I just remember thinking, I couldn't believe that I'd got to 4 centimetres because that's when they class it as established labour. So in normal hospitals, that's when Lee could have been staying with me from that point, because we were in a private like birthing centre. Well, it's a public, but because it's a private birthing centre, he was allowed to be with me all the time anyway. But yeah, so the 4 centimetres was what I had in my head when I wanted to go in and stay in. So I was really pleased that I'd managed to get to that point, and I couldn't believe that I'd got to that point without more than just a few paracetamol, because yeah, I wasn't really in that much pain at this point, was I? It was a little crazy. So we stayed in, got unpacked, phoned my parents, let them know that we were having a baby because they were coming down to look after the dogs as well. And then everything that wise is, like I say, still in the video, isn't it, really?
Because same again, you didn't get in tons of pain until
no.
a lot later on. We basically just
yeah.
did what we do here. We
so,
just sat on the phone.
Yeah, we were just chilling. I was watching Toy Story. We had a few more examinations. I got in and out of the birth pool a couple of times.
I went and got food. Yeah,
Lee went to go get food. So it was just really like calm and stuff. And then we went for a walk at tea time, got back, had our tea, and then just started doing things again. Now this is when I say that things changed. So it was at about 8 o'clock when my waters broke. And that's when things started to change, and that's when the intensity of the surges, the contractions started to change. After being examined, I was examined one night after my waters broke, and she said I was 8 centimetres dilated after my waters broke. I was still in the same amount of pain I had been like the whole few days. So had we not gone in, I wouldn't have gone in until I was 8 centimetres dilated when my waters broke, which is pretty crazy really, isn't it? Well, probably even after, because they say when your waters break, they might ask you to come in, but they might just say like, see how you manage at home, and then if there's not anything within 24 hours. I think because I'd had like the little bits of blood, they might have asked me to go in, but yeah, it's a little bit crazy. Why am I so white now? Because you're sat back there.
Oh, yeah, I look way tanned.
You sit forward.
Goes too.
So yeah, I wouldn't have gone in until like 8 centimetres, which is just a little bit scary really to think about that, isn't it? But we were in there anyway, so it was okay.
With only a traffic jam away from
we were. And being born in the car. So then, like we say, everything else is in the birth vlog from that point of view. So then I'm going to skip ahead to around about 2-3 a.m. So at this point I had started pushing at about 1 a.m. That was right, wasn't it?
You're way better times than I am.
So I started pushing at about 1 a.m. and by 3 a.m. he still wasn't here. So I actually think I started pushing a little bit early because I knew that I was fully dilated by this point and my body felt like it was pushing. However, on hindsight, I should have waited for him to come down a little bit more before I started pushing, but it doesn't matter now anyway because it didn't change the outcome really. So yeah, I was pushing for 2 hours, and that's the kind of point where they don't really want you to be pushing for much longer. So at the 2 hour point they were like, right, we're gonna have to transfer you to the bigger main hospital because it's getting more dangerous for both of you now, especially for him, because I've been pushing for that long. They did a couple of monitors of his heart rate and a couple of times it was quite low, wasn't it? So it was at like the 130 to 140 point throughout my whole pregnancy, but throughout the whole labour. And I remember him saying it had dropped to 90 a couple of times. So they were like, right, let's get you over there so that you're in the best place possible. Because you've been pushing for so long now, we need to make sure you're in safe hands should you need any interventions. So I had to go over in the ambulance, which beforehand I was really scared to do, because as I said to them when I was leaving, I was like, I don't want Lee to drive to the hospital with all our stuff. I want him to come with me in the ambulance. I said, I don't want to give birth in the ambulance without Lee there. And they told me, they were like, we will not put you in the ambulance if we think you're going to give birth there. We'd rather you give birth here in like the safe environment and then transfer you. So that made me like relax a little bit. And at this point as well, you do get in the zone where you're just like, okay, I need to do what I need to do for it to be safe for me and the baby. So Lee drove over in his car to the hospital while I was being blue lighted over in the ambulance. And what were you feeling at that point, Lee?
So I was trying to keep everything off my mind just because
you had to drive.
I was driving, yeah, and just didn't want to be rushing and not paying attention and things like that. So yeah, I was just concentrating on getting over to you. Yeah.
And then I remember as soon as I was wheeled out into the ambulance, things changed for me. So I was finding it really hard pushing. I didn't feel like anything was happening, but when the fresh air hit me and I got outside, I could feel like my body knew what it needed to do then. So I think I'd almost become too relaxed in the birth centre, and that hit of fresh air really woke me up and was like, yes, here we go. But I should note as well, they said that I was probably finding it really hard to push because I'd not slept for 3 days. I'd had like 3 hours sleep over 3 days. So they said I was exhausted. Like they asked if I had any like electrolyte drinks, isotonic drinks, like Lucozade or things like that, just to give me a boost, but we didn't. So if I was to have children in the future, more children, I'd know to take things like that in case you need the extra boost of energy. But yeah, so got myself to the hospital. When I arrived there, they had to like set me up before Lee got there. So before Lee got there, they put my feet up in stirrups and they put a cannula in my arm as well in case I needed any fluids or any extra drugs or anything like that. So then Lee walks into the room at the exact moment they are inserting the cannula and I'm having a contraction. So I am pushing the baby out while they're trying to insert it, and what happens, Lee?
Blood just went everywhere.
So
you were just pushing down that much pressure. They'd got the needle in, so you pretty much had like an open vein, and before they managed to cap it, you were pushing, and yeah, just came out.
So I didn't see any of this because I had my eyes closed for pretty much when I got out onto the stretcher into the ambulance. I just had my eyes closed for the most of it until he was born. I hardly opened my eyes because I was just focusing on being in my zone and not any, I suppose people would call it craziness that was going on. Some people would see it as quite traumatic, but I didn't because I was just in the zone, like I say, with my eyes closed, doing my own thing. So yeah, I was just, like I say, doing my own thing. And yeah, what happened then? So then after they'd got it capped and everything, they told me I needed to keep pushing, and before I'd left the birth centre, they told me that I needed to go because I might need a vacuum on his head to help him come out. So that was always in our minds, that I might need to have that. The one thing that never came up was a section. They were pretty sure they were going to get him out with a suction cup, so that was like reassuring to know, really. But they actually gave me an episiotomy. So again, I didn't really feel anything. They gave me a little injection that numbed it just like locally and gave me the episiotomy, and that was fine. You said there was quite a lot of blood though, didn't you, when that happened?
Yeah, there was. There was blood everywhere.
So for me, it just felt like a pop, like an elastic band popping. That's all I could feel. Again, I was pushing, still nothing. At this point, I've been pushing like 3.5 hours, and they wanted to get him out. So was it another doctor that had come into the room, and she was like, give her an extra cut?
Yeah, the supervisor said that before they went for the vacuum, they were like, yeah, give her another centimetre, and if not, then we do it vacuum. So
they gave me an extra little bit of a cut, and then I could hear that they were like prepping to do the vacuum on him, weren't they? And for my birth, my mum, she was going to have a forceps delivery with me, and the midwife said to her, we don't need that, do it, and she pushed me out. And that was literally what was going through my head the whole time. I was like, I don't need this, I can push him out like my mum pushed me out. Bless you. Oh, you're tired. So yeah, that was all I thought of, and I pushed like the hardest I could, and I never even felt his head come out. But then one time I pushed and I just felt his body go. It's the only way that I can describe it. Like him coming out of me.
Smoothed out, didn't you?
And I wanted Lee to announce whether I had a boy or a girl, but obviously in all, like, I don't know if it was the excitement or whatever, the midwife didn't see that on like the birth notes or whatever, and so she left, actually it wasn't even on the notes, we just told him in the birth centre when we went in, so that's why they didn't know that. But she just held him up and went, you've got a son, and then placed him on me with his little blue wriggly body, and it was beautiful. And I literally said back, I was like, oh, I've got a son. And then it all goes so blurry, like time just rolls into one then, I think, doesn't it? But yeah,
it does, because I cut the cord, didn't I?
Yeah.
But I think you said it was...
Yeah, so on my notes I can see that there was 10 minutes before the placenta was delivered. So we had the delayed cord clamping that I wanted before we cut it. But the placenta came out naturally. That was like really easy. She went, just give a little push and it went. But you said it was quite compact and small, so that's probably why that one was easy to come out. Yeah, that was that. And then like I say, time just kind of went in on itself, so she had to stitch me up, and she spent 45 minutes stitching me up, so that just tells you the size of the cut that they gave me. And she just gave me a little top up of the local anaesthetic on my lady parts while she did the stitches, and she did give me some gas and air, but I think I only had like 3 puffs of it or something like that, but it didn't hit me half as strong as it did when I was in the birth centre, so it was literally, again, just to take a little bit of the edge off. At this point, Lee was having some really nice, were you skin to skin with him?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, just snuggling up to him. And then once we were stitched up, we had probably about half an hour to ourselves before we rung family. And we rung my family and told them on a video call and showed them him and said it was a little boy and what his name was, which was just really lovely. And then we did the same to Lee's mum and dad too, and they'd all been up all night, so excited, waiting for the new arrival. Yeah, then we were just chilling in hospital. I got some breakfast. I had a hot chocolate, some Cocoa Pops and some jam on toast. And then I had lunch later on of a sandwich. I had some Snacker Jacks. I was just hungry one so I had a lot to eat and drink. And do you remember any other details?
No, the whole that kind of morning was a blur, like you say, wasn't it? Because we were
Lee had a nap
Yeah, I fell asleep for a bit.
I couldn't. I had so much adrenaline running through me. Yeah, but you had a nap as well, didn't you? Yeah.
You got him breastfeeding straight away, didn't you?
Oh yeah, so we had a couple of breastfeeds, and then I also put some colostrum into the syringe as well for him because he didn't want to latch straight away, did he? So we gave him some of the colostrum out of a syringe as well, and he was fine. Have you had enough now? So I think that's the major portion of the story anyway, but I do have some questions. So I'm just going to take a quick break to sort Jesse out, and then I'll be back by myself to answer some of the questions that I've had relating to his birth as well. Right, okay, I am back and ready to film the questions part of the video. I brought my yogurt up, didn't I? Because that is my life. Like when you get 5 minutes to film your video, you're like, what else can I do? I'm going to eat my yogurt, that's what I can do. So, I did ask a couple of times on Instagram what you wanted to know about birth, labour, delivery, pregnancy, if you had any as well. So, this is the questions that I got through from you. So, yes, let's just jump straight into the questions. So the first question we have is, I'm due my baby in May and I'm worried about birth. What helped you through labour? So 100% hands down, I can say the main thing that helped me get through my labour was hypnobirthing, and in particular breathing techniques. So I've had a few people who knew that I did hypnobirthing ask me the questions of, would you recommend it, was it worth it? And yes, I would say everybody who is wanting to have a more natural style birth to definitely look into it, and anyone who's going to give birth, basically, you should just have a look at it. Even if you're going to be having a scheduled C-section or anything, just take a course. So the one that I did was from the Positive Birth Company, and it was just so informative to learn about birth and what your body's going to go through and the science behind everything. And I think that really helps you be a lot more relaxed about labour and birth, because you know why everything is happening and you know how to best work with your own body to help it be as pain-free and easy as possible. So I would say everybody should look into hypnobirthing. That is the number one thing that helped me through labour. Like I say, especially the breathing techniques. I do not know how anyone goes through labour and doesn't breathe properly, because it just gave me something to really focus on, and it let the oxygen flood my body, which is what you need in as well in labour. So definitely breathing techniques and hypnobirthing, look into that. And also to go along with that, like I was saying, even if you're going to have like a scheduled section or anything like that, because it tells you about all the different outcomes. So hypnobirthing isn't just about like anything that's hoo-ha, you know. It's not going to magically make you have the birth of your dreams, but it will help you to have a positive and happy experience no matter what happens, whatever environment you're going into or coming out of. It just helps you get your head around what could happen and how to, yeah, make a positive out of any kind of situation, basically. And like I say, you've heard my birth story, and some people could belay that as like a little bit traumatic, getting transferred in an ambulance and everything, but I didn't have a traumatic birth at all. I 100% enjoyed my birth, loved my birth, had a positive birth experience, and 100% I would do it again. The next question is, now you've gone through it, is there anything you would do differently next time if you do? Now I did already answer this a little bit in like what I previously said, in that the only one thing I would do differently would be I would not start pushing as early on. Sorry if you can hear the dogs barking, this is my crazy house. Yeah, so when I first started pushing, I thought that my body was ready to start pushing because I could feel it like pushing downwards. But in hindsight, my body wasn't ready for me to push. It just needed to push itself in terms of pushing the baby further down before I started pushing. I hope that makes sense. So that is the only thing that I would do differently, is I would let the baby come down into the birth canal a little bit more before I actively started pushing. The next question is, how painful was it? So I'm not going to lie and say that it didn't hurt at all, and I'm not going to also lie and say it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced, because I don't know, it was just a weird one for me. So I wouldn't actually describe the contractions as painful. I would say that they were intense, and that, yeah, it wasn't pain, it was more like, what's the word I've been using? I think it begins with a P. Yeah, powerful, that's it. So I wouldn't describe them as painful, I would describe them as powerful. So I could definitely feel them, especially after my waters like broke. After there, when everything did ramp up and it was more painful then, but still it was just powerful. So it was nothing that you can't manage. Like, it wasn't unbearable pain. This is just for me personally as well. Like, everyone's labour experience is different, but I always thought I had a really low pain tolerance, so I was a little nervous, maybe apprehensive, but I knew that I could control my mind, and I really wanted to prove to myself that I could do it that way, so I was really pleased that I could. So I just had gas and air, and I asked for that because, like I say, when my waters went, I knew I needed something just to take the edge off, to keep me focused. So yeah, that's how I would describe it. Not painful, just powerful. Was the experience better or worse than you had imagined it would be? And to be honest, it was much better than I thought it would be. So like I just said, I wasn't in a lot of pain, but I had a long labour. I always, going into it, heard like horror stories of women being in like 30 hours of labour, like 19 hours of labour, and I think officially mine's down as like 16.5 hours of active labour from when I was first admitted to when he was born. So that's quite a long labour really. And I thought, oh my gosh, I do not want a labour that long, but it did not feel that long while I was in there. Like, the time just absolutely flew by. So don't let timing scare you, or the weight of your baby scare you either, because you don't know how much they weigh until they come out. So like, people are like, oh, a 9-pound baby, but until you've got that baby out, you don't know it's 9 pounds. So yeah, but I would say it was, yeah, a lot better than I had imagined, and I just coped with it a lot better than I thought I would as well. So it definitely wouldn't put me off having any more, basically. And then the final question for today is a two-parter, and the first part is, did you get an epidural? And no, I didn't. All I had was a couple of paracetamol and some gas and air. I had a little local anaesthetic when they had to cut me, but that was literally just the cut area. It didn't numb any other part of me or anything like that, and then I just had a top up of that when they stitched me up. So going through birth and labour, all I had was gas and air, and I was so proud of myself for doing that. It was something to me, I just wanted to have as natural a birth as possible. But I'm not saying that if you choose to have an epidural, or if you have had an epidural, that you've done birth like any worse or less than me. I'm not saying that at all. Like, it's each to their own individual's circumstances and preferences. So I didn't need anything more than gas and air, so yeah, I was okay with that. That was helping me manage it. But I didn't really want to have the epidural, but I was also open that if I needed to have more pain relief than gas and air, then I would, and I would take it in the moment. And I was also open that if in that moment I could not get through without any more pain relief, then I would accept it, because whatever you do and whatever you take, whatever you have, like medication wise, you need to be able to get into the zone. So if an epidural helps you to get into the zone and calm and able to have the birth of your dreams, then absolutely 100% take it. But for me, I just would have preferred not to, and I'm glad that I didn't. And then the second part is, were you induced? And no, I was not induced. Thankfully, I just went in to natural labour, because I'll be honest, that was one thing I really did not want to be done. I really did not want to be induced, and it was something I talked about with my midwife beforehand, that should it get to the point where we need to start thinking about induction, that I was going to assess how I was at the time, but as long as I was healthy and baby was healthy, then I would think about refusing the induction and seeing how I was going to get on naturally with sweeps and things like that. And I was also having acupuncture, so if it got to that point as well, I was going to have some natural acupuncture sessions to help naturally induce the labour. So I wanted to try everything else before a medical intervention of induction. I know for some people they don't have that luxury, and for whatever reasons you do need to be induced, but the Positive Birth Company uses the thing called brain, which stands for different things, so to use your brain to think. And unless there's a medical reason for you to be induced, or for you want to be induced as well, then you should really think, do I need to be induced, basically. I just lost my train of thought there, but what I'm saying was I didn't want to be induced, so I was prepared to refuse it as long as everything was good for me and the baby, but I didn't need to be, luckily. So yeah, that was my big thing. I really wanted to go into natural spontaneous labour, and very thankfully I did. And that is all the questions I believe I have today, and that is all the information to give you about the birth of my baby. I don't think I mentioned, but his full name is Jesse Tobias. Tobias is his middle name. He was born, I don't know why I'm looking at all these details, he was born on the 21st of September at 4:37 AM and he weighed 7 pounds 4 ounces, so just little below the average for a boy in our country. And yeah, that is everything. I hope you have enjoyed watching it. Please give it a big thumbs up if you have. I did announce recently on my Instagram when I'm going to be uploading videos, so I am going to be uploading every Wednesday and Sunday from now on. My Instagram is always linked down below as well, because I am on there daily and I do ask questions relating to YouTube and what you want to see on my channel, so go ahead and follow me over there so that you can answer some of those polls and such what. Make sure you subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!